ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ Okay, so we took a 2 week break, I think, or a 1 week break, and we're back. Yes, so the last time we looked at um, the first shloka of the Gita, or rather, where Dhritarashtra is asking the question, what did my sons do, and what did the sons of Pandu do? So this is just some additional color that will be added to this. So Dhritarashtra's question, if somebody would like to read, any volunteers?
I can read.
Yeah, please.
Oh, I'm not seeing your sharing yet. You're going to share, right?
Do you see it now?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Dhritarashtra's question. Sanjaya was sitting in the palace of Hastinapura in front of Dhritarashtra, who asked the question, what happened between Pandavas and my people at Kurukshetra? As the narrator of Gita, Sanjaya had been given the power by Vyasa to see and hear what was taking place elsewhere. Although Dhritarashtra was the oldest, most revered person in the family, he was nursing a jealousy towards the Pandavas because they were sons of his younger brother Pandu, who ruled the kingdom instead of himself due to his blindness. Such complexes do not easily disappear. It is important to note that the word dharma is the first word of Gita. If you protect dharma, dharma will protect you. Dharmo rakshati rakshitaha. But this is not the case with things like money. Money you protect may protect you in a time of need, but it can also attract bandits and muggers. When dharma is protected, it does protect you. To protect dharma is to live dharma, and for a kshatriya to live dharma, he must do what is to be done. To do what is to be done leads to moksha. That is why dharma is placed first among the four purusharthas, human ends or pursuits, are dharma, artha, kama, moksha. In fact, the order is more accurately reflected as artha, kama, dharma, and moksha in keeping with a person's natural tendency to go for security and pleasure, artha and kama first. But dharma is placed first because of its importance. Um, just a thought. I don't know if this is because this thought itself is because we discussed this before here. Is dharma placed before because we should at all times going for security have dharma in mind, going for luxury have dharma in mind, right? Is that yeah.
Exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
okay.
And even for going to moksha, you need to have dharma in mind because
Right,
you can't leave your family and say, "Oh, bye bye, I'm going to study." You guys do everything on
right,
your own.
right, right. Law of dharma. Because the Gita begins with the word dharma in the compound dharma kshetre, the importance of dharma is evident. Kshetra means a place. A place of pilgrimage is called kshetra. It can be a country or your physical body. The whole Bharata, India, was a place where the Vedas once ruled the hearts of the people, and therefore it is a dharma pradana kshetra, meaning that the predominant ruling factor of all human activity is the law of dharma. Veda Ukta Dharma. Dharma is important and everything else, power, wealth, etc., should be in conformity with it. Power without dharma is not power at all and is not considered proper. Money without dharma is not true wealth. Any form of pleasure should be gathered legitimately. According to dharma, a ruler is to be respected, which is why you do not see a king's audience with empty hands. Similarly, when you go to a temple or to a teacher, you always carry something. No one should approach these three, Devata, Guru, and Raja, empty handed. This is why the citizens of India always greet a new king with flowers or some other offering in their hands. They even did this for Alexander the Great. Until he actually won the war, they fought against him. Once he won, they all lined up and offered flowers to him. Because the entire country was ruled by Vedas, it was referred to as Dharma Kshetra because Dharma prevailed and the Indian people always respected the king. This was known very well by the British, and that is why they retained the local king. These kings ruled the people who worshipped them, and British ruled the king, extracting an annual tribute from them. Although there were rumblings, they allowed the small kingdoms to exist. The Muslims also were able to rule the majority of people only because of this particular dharma. Every new world country, previously colonized and subsequently independent, has a history of bloody coup. India, on the other hand, has never had such coup because even today dharma is in the very blood of the people. This is Vaidika dharma. You cannot change it completely. It is still there. India is a peace loving country because there is a Vedic genius here there. The whole country is a dharma kshetra. It is a place where even the courtyards of people's homes one can hear talk of the timeless, all knowing, and the limitless. What a culture it is. Classes on the Upanishads are conducted under a tree for large groups of people. A mountain may be in view and the river Ganga may be flowing by. Here, the teacher, the hermit, says, all that is, there is one. All the dividing factors are but a myth. This is India, Bharata Bhumi. This particular Bhumi, earth or land, has something amazing about it. It has survived thousands of years of deliberate exploitation and destruction only because of the intrinsic worth of the Vedic wisdom. Therefore, it is called Dharmakshetra.
Very beautifully explained. Any questions here? So, couple of things is to clarify. When Puju Samji says that the British and the Muslims were able to rule the majority of the people because of this particular dharma, to clarify, they were not using dharma to rule. They exploited this dharma that the Indian people followed in a sort of a manipulative fashion in order to rule them. So, I think even Battle of Buxar or Battle of Panipat, somebody who knows their history better than I do will probably clarify. But after the Britishers had defeated the Indian um, infantry, they paraded through the streets and people were actually throwing flowers at them. So, this is just a thing that, when you lose graciously, not like a sore loser, and you don't um, kind of like become rebels. That being said, it may also be a very, in modern times, because nobody is really, I guess, if somebody invades your nation or if you have an enemy at the border, because most people, the people that we engage with in the external world, do not engage with these, dharmic rites that we follow. It may not be the best idea to play by the same rules as we used to in earlier days, if that makes sense. Because the rules of war, the rules of engagement have changed a lot, and so we need to take that into consideration as well. So, for instance, today, if you have this was a documented thing, right? That when the Muslims invaded India, the Mughals, and then you had the Delhi Sultanate, and again we learnt all this in history books. They would torch, tenements of Hindus in the night because Hindus would not fight after sunset, and so they would take advantage of our following a certain precept of dharma, and then they would attack in the night and they would burn tents and they would burn I guess just where we live, just kill them in the night, that sort of thing. So that is obviously very ruthless, and they would also attack women and children, which is something that you don't typically do because even in ancient India, when kings conquered kingdoms, yes, they would take the bounty. Yes, they would, absorb the soldiers into their own units, into their own army, but they would never molest women or murder children and things like that. But that's what we as Hindus have experienced from the outsiders. So when the enemies are not willing to engage in your exchange of dharma, then sometimes you need to flout a few rules in order to just survive. And that's something that we also see in the Mahabharata later, when the expectation of the Kauravas from the Pandavas was that they will also fight dharmically. And for the most part, I think for the first 9 or 10 days, they did fight with honor. But on the 10th day, when they ganged up on Abhimanyu, the 10th day of the Kurukshetra, then all bets were off. Right now, when you have flouted the rules of war, that's when Krishna Bhagavan said that, you know what, it's time for us to return the favor in kind. And so when Abhimanyu, multiple things went wrong, right? First of all, you're not supposed to attack somebody from behind. It's supposed to be face to face with your attacker. You're not supposed to attack somebody who's on the ground if you are mounted on a horse or on an elephant. You're not supposed to attack somebody without weapons if you have weapons. And there are all of these ethics that were followed for the uh, first several days. But then when Abhimanyu was attacked, he was attacked from behind. He was attacked by multiple people. He was attacked when he was not armed. Every rule was broken with Abhimanyu. It was almost like he had to die in order for uh, the Pandavas to say, "Hey guys, you cheated. Now we are going to do the same." And so Krishna Bhagavan started doing his kapat, which people say, "Oh, this is not right." Of course it is. How else will you win the war if the other side is cheating and you're not? So the rules change depending on the level of engagement from the other side. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Um, and this culture that Puju Samji talks about, this beautiful Bharatiya Samskriti, we have to distinguish between what Bharat stands for and how much of Bharat is represented by the people of Bharat. And these days, with the advent of social media, with the new generation not following some of our scriptural teachings, or for that matter, not understanding them and outright rejecting them without getting a sense of what they truly represent. All of that is sort of a modernized, secularized, globalized culture, an Indian culture, but not necessarily the Bharatiya Samskriti that we are so proud of and that we adhere to. So if a person goes to India, they see certain things which are unethical. That is not a representative of the culture that Puja Samji is speaking about. It's not the Vedic culture. It's not the Bharatiya culture. It is a culture that has been distorted over time and that people have followed more recently. For instance, I could say that there are certain things in India that we don't do very well. Uh, there's this word called jugad. I think if you're familiar with it, that we are very scrappy people in the sense that we try to find the shortest path between 2 points, and that shortest path may not be the most ethical path also at times. So if somebody gives you a job as opposed to doing a good job, we try to just get to the most quick and easy solution, even if it means not doing a perfect job or not doing a good enough job. Another example is even in India, let's say if you have so many pickpockets. My mother, for instance, lost she had her phone stolen while she was traveling somewhere, and these things happen, right? So in the US, when I would leave my phone somewhere by mistake, I would find it 2 days later also. So there is something to be said about a certain culture where you honor an individual's property rights, which is not being done so well in certain parts of the world, including mainstream Indian culture. So this is again not representative of Bharatiya Samskriti, but it is representative of something that has changed in the last several centuries or millennia, whatever it may be. But something has changed. We need to bring back this Samskriti and adhere to what the Vedas represent. Asteya bhava, aparigraha bhava, this bhava, that bhava, all these beautiful things that the Shastras talk about. Unless we create a sacred space for these values in our heart, we will never truly be able to represent the greatness of what the Vedas, um, um, you know, have given us in. as part of an ancient Indian heritage. So yeah, that's just a side point. Any thoughts here before we proceed? Okay, if you'd like to continue.
Yeah. Oh, wait, wait on 1 second. I can't see what weakness. One minute, I
Oh,
don't
it's acha, acha.
Dhritarashtra's weakness. Just 1 second. Ah, the words Mamaka and Pandava in this verse are significant. Pandu's sons were not unknown to Dhritarashtra, and yet he did not include them among his own people here. Dhritarashtra was the oldest in the family and should have looked upon Pandu's children as his own, and yet he used the words Pandavaha and Mamakaha, thus creating a division when he asked what happened between my people and the Pandavas, revealing where his heart lay. This information was important to Dhritarashtra because his son's victory would be his own. Therefore, he wanted to know, did Duryodhana win? Impelled by Dharma, out of fear of destroying his own people, did Dharmaputra decide to go back to the forest so that my Duryodhana would retain the kingdom? His question reflected his visual thinking. Otherwise, the question would have been irrelevant. He would not have asked, Kim Akurvata, what did they do? Everyone had obviously come to fight. They were armed to the mullahs. They had not assembled here there to have fun. Dhritarashtra himself knew that. Moreover, he was very eager to know everything that had happened in detail. Dhritarashtra knew he did not have dharma with him. He also knew very well that his sons had no dharma either. He did not stop the war. He did not tell Duryodhana that what he was doing was wrong and withdraw his support. Had he done so, Bhishma and Drona would not have joined Duryodhana because what he was doing would have been against his father's mandate. None of this happened, however. All Dhritarashtra had to do was to speak one sentence to Duryodhana, but this he did not do. This was Dhritarashtra. He was very jealous of the Pandavas. This jealousy and his blind love for Duryodhana led him to support all the schemes that Duryodhana hatched against the Pandavas. Thus, he was indirectly responsible for the war and its outcome. The war in one's mind. This verse can also be looked at subjectively. Kurukshetra would then mean Karma Kshetra, the physical body, because the human body is a place where, backed by free will, karma is done. It is called Karma Kshetra. The same Karma Kshetra is also called Dharma Kshetra because it is born of Dharma, meaning Punya. According to the law of karma, a human incarnation is due to a mixture of both Punya and Papa, with Punya being the predominant factor. Therefore, it is called Punya Pradhana Kshetra. Here, then, in this human physical body called Punya Pradhana Dharmakshetra and Kurukshetra, two forces have assembled. Dharma represented by the Pandavas and Adharma represented by Dhritarashtra's sons. Dhritarashtra was blind, but more than that, his mind was blind to Dharma and Adharma, right and wrong. Therefore, his sons, Kauravas, are considered to be the brood of ignorance. In other words, they were born of the lack of discrimination between right and wrong, aviveka. Blindness is ignorance, and aviveka is the lack of discriminative knowledge. The Gita deals with two types of aviveka. One is with reference to dharma and adharma, right and wrong, and the other is with reference to atma and anatma, which is why the Gita is called both Yoga Shastra and Brahma Vidya. The blind man here stands for ignorance, ajnana. In blindness, you do not see, and in ignorance, also you do not. The fight between dharma and adharma. Confusion is born out of ignorance. No one, however, can say, I am ignorant of what is right and wrong. Whatever one expects from others in terms of behavior attitudes, and so on, is right if the same behavior and attitudes are expected of oneself by others. This means that the values are understood by everyone, but the value of the values is not. Here, the Kauravas represent many confusions caused by ignorance, which is why they are greater in number than the Pandavas. Pandu stands for discriminative knowledge. In the Mahabharata, he was presented as being very white in appearance. White always stands for knowledge. The Pandavas then were born of this discriminative knowledge with reference to dharma and adharma. They were only a handful and represent our inclinations towards dharma. There are also inclinations towards adharma. These are born out of aviveka, lack of discrimination with reference to the value of values, where inclinations towards dharma are born out of one's general knowledge of right and wrong. Because of the confusion surrounding values, there is a fight between the inclinations towards dharma and those towards adharma. Only in the human body or in its equivalent is this fight possible. No human being can avoid this conflict unless he or she understands everything properly. Dhritarashtra's question, what did they do, reflects a confusion related to values born of ignorance. Any external problem can come from internal problem. All wars are first fought in the mind, are they not? The Second World War was first fought in the mind of Hitler. The conflict that began in the mind was actualized on the battlefield. All problems start in the mind and later find their expression outside. Without conflict in the mind, there would be no external conflict.
So we covered quite a bit. Any questions, thoughts? Let me see. Yeah, I think pretty straightforward exposition. So we can proceed. This we
The
saw, no?
imagery,
We spoke about this, or did we read this?
yeah, we read this in the introduction, I think.
Okay, the
Yeah.
introduction. Okay, okay. Got it.
Arjuna's chariot. The imagery of the chariot, Arjuna's chariot with Arjuna and Krishna in it, can be seen in terms of self knowledge unfolded by Upanishads and the Gita. The significance of the scenario is explained in the Kathopanishad. The physical body is the chariot, Ratha is the intellect, Buddhi is its driver, Sarati. The self, Atma, is the master seated in the back seat. The mind is likened to the reins that control the horses, and the horses represent the sense organs. The sense objects become the roads, as it were, because the sense organs naturally go towards them. The horses are held in check by the Sarathi, the driver. He or she may let go of the reins, but the horses are still kept under control. Thus, with your body as your chariot and your intellect as your driver, seated in the back seat, you are out in the world. If your viveka, discrimination, is not available to you, it is because your driver is confused, and what happens to the chariot under such circumstances becomes quite understandable. Buddhi as Guru. Now we can bring in this imagery into the opening scene of Gita. Here the charioteer is Lord Krishna, the Guru. He keeps the horses under control, thereby keeping the chariot under control. Krishna being a jnani, his mind and senses are under his control. He has absolute mastery over them. The student who is the karma yogi too has a buddhi that has the mind and senses under his control. Now, the student's buddhi is not different from Guru's buddhi, but when such a buddhi is exposed to the pramana taught by the Guru, therefore, such a buddhi exposed to the teaching can itself be likened to the Guru. Although we say that the pramana is Vedanta, it is really a thought, a vritti, that is the pramana. Pramana is that which gives rise to knowledge. For example, the eyes are not the final pramana for seeing. The vritti is the final pramana in as much as it is the final cause for knowledge. To see a flower, you must have flower vritti. It is the flower vritti that gives rise to the knowledge of the flower scene. This is what is meant by pramana. A vritti is born out of a certain situation and becomes pramana. We say that the ears and eyes are the pramana, but in the final analysis, the vritti alone is the pramana. The mind being the place where the vritti occurs is called antahkarana, meaning inner instrument. When you are exposed to a teacher or the teaching, your buddhi, the intellect, assumes the very form of pramana, the teaching. Therefore, the guru's buddhi or the teaching and your buddhi become one and the same.
So this part, I just want to pause here. I
Yeah.
would say this is one of the most important things. What you just read in the last couple of paragraphs. If this is not understood, I can very confidently say Vedanta is not understood. Um, I'm just going to pause here for a bit, see if you understand this thoroughly. If there are any questions, or if you'd like to even clarify what you understand, we could spend some time here. Super important.
About the pramana, right? So we see something with the eyes, but we only understand it, make sense of it, and make it concrete. That with our thought. That is what they mean as vritti as pramana, right?
Nahi, nahi, nahi.
No.
So over here in Shravanam, there is no effort involved. When we say we think about it, we rationalize, we analyze all of those things, there's effort involved over there. So in this vritti, in this pramana vritti, in this jnana janya vritti about Atma Jnana, there is absolutely no contemplation or analysis. There's no doer involved over here. It is direct. So and this is very critical because what this is essentially telling us is how self knowledge takes place. So today, let's say you have a student and you have a teacher. You could have multiple students. You'll have one teacher. One person gets it, the other person doesn't. And that's not because of how the person is rationalizing it, but rather because of the foundation that the student already has built, that a certain level of antakarana shuddhi is there, which allows the pramana to be operated by the guru such that the words that are, first of all, the guru is obviously assuming a competent teacher. If the teacher is not competent or if they don't have the necessary means to communicate the teaching, then you can't blame the student. Then you have to blame the individual who's teaching. The guru here implies a shrotriya, which means that this guru has the capacity. First of all, the guru knows, understands fully. Hopefully, if the guru's Brahman Nishtha also, then that abidance in the knowledge is there. So let's assume that you have a Brahma Nishtha, Brahma Shrotriya Acharya. Let's take Pujya Swamiji, some great Mahatma. Now, if you have this individual who is teaching a student, the guru's words will be the direct reflection of the guru's understanding. The guru will also operate the words in a certain manner which consider the background of the student. For example, if you understand Tamil, but the guru is teaching in Gujarati, it's not going to work. The teaching may be correct, but if you don't understand it because of the background, it's not going to work. If the guru teaches in Tamil instead of Gujarati, then I'll not understand because I understand Gujarati. So again, it's not just the teaching, but the communication piece that matters a lot. Okay. So the communication, the words are a clear mirror which reflect the meaning that is embedded in the vritti, in the buddhi of the guru. The words of the guru are manifest from the buddhi. They take physical form in the form of sound. They fall upon one's ears, and that sense of hearing, listening, hearing takes place. When that takes place, if the student is well prepared, if the student has the right contextual knowledge of what is covered, that includes language, it includes a certain prakriya, a methodology that the guru has followed. Because today, if you're a teacher, you know that when you teach a child, also there's a methodology that you follow in school. Also, there's a syllabus, there's a whole set of teachings that build on top of each other to give you a complete context. Vedanta is a little different. It is not syllabic because when you talk about a syllabus, again we're talking about concepts built on top on concepts, etc., etc. But in Vedanta, the methodology over here is the prakriya, the mode in which the pramana operates. And when that prakriya is clear, the student sees that seeing, as Pujya Swamiji has implied, that who is a guru, the one who makes you see. The seeing implies that the student is prepared, that the guru is competent, that the words are communicated, and they are not processed, but they simply fall, and knowledge takes place. Hearing takes place. Hearing is knowledge because the words are knowledge. And what takes place in the mind of the student is connected in the form of words with what is there in the mind of the teacher. And there is a clear mirror reflection of what the teacher sees and what the student sees, and the bridge is the words that are communicating that knowledge. Now suppose we say that, okay, the words are communicated, now you have to think about it, etc., etc. There's a doer involved over here. The karta is involved, and that karta is trying to objectify the karta, or is trying to objectify the cell, which again creates a sort of conceptual framework. But when hearing takes place, there is no action involved. There's no kartrutva bhava involved when hearing takes place. In fact, very recently I listened to a talk by Pujya Swamiji, and he said that that is why Shravanam, in the form of listening, is slightly superior than reading as well. Because when you're reading, also, he said there is a karta that's also involved in the reading process. You're flipping pages, your eyes are scanning the page, you are seeing the script, right? There's what script you're seeing over here is a Roman script. You could have Devanagari script, you could have Tamil script, you could have different scripts. So now there's a translation process where the script is translated into a sound. Try to read something without the internal sound and you'll not be able to read it. There's an internal sound. So ultimately it has to become Shravanam, whether you read it or whether you listen to it. But listening is more direct because this karta is not involved over here. There's no post processing that's involved over here. So what is post processing? Like you buy some vegetables, then you have to chop it up, then you put in the grinder, then you make chutney out of it, or whatever. You do something fancy with it. All of this is post processing. Over here, this is direct. The words are direct. They fall upon one's sense of hearing, and hearing takes place. There is no karta involved. There's no bhokta involved. There's no nothing involved. There is simply listening, hearing. And in that process, if the mind is prepared enough, the knowledge that is communicated in the form of the vritti is born. The knowledge is born in the form of a vritti because that knowledge takes place in the form of the vritti that is essentially the sound. The sound becomes the vritti. The vritti is the meaning. It is not the sound, but the ultimate vritti is the meaning that the sounds convey. Suppose you say dog. There's a sound associated with the word dog, but there's a meaning. What you know to be a dog is the meaning of the word dog. But it's not just the sound. But suppose I say, like in French, the dog is called chien. It's a word in French. Now, if I did not say it's a dog, you would not think of a dog. It would just sound like a word that you've heard. So the word is meaningless. It is just a sound without meaning. But when you have a meaning with the sound, then it becomes a word. That is a shabda. Suppose I knock on wood like this or something like that. That is just a sound. You don't say it's a word. But if if I say the word knock, now there's a meaning associated with the knock, and you know what a knock is. So that becomes a word. The word and the meaning are married together. You cannot separate them, just as you cannot separate Shiva and Shakti. You cannot separate, what is essentially one. And so this meaning of Tattvamasi is carried by the vritti. The vrittis present the meaning takes place, and the jnana takes place. The buddhi is where the taking place happens. And what is eliminated in the process of this is avidya. Avidya has no space when vidya vritti takes place. Vidya is also vritti. Knowledge is also vritti. One vritti knocks off the other vritti and both of them disappear. Because a vritti doesn't hang around. Suppose knowledge of the self takes place in the form of a vritti. A vritti comes and a vritti goes, but it leaves knowledge behind. That knowledge stays, it doesn't go away. Suppose you heard 2 plus 2 equals 4. If you're an infant, you don't know 2 plus 2 equals 4. What is 2 plus 2 equals 4? It's just a set of words. But now, suppose you understood that 2 plus 2 equals 4. You don't have to carry 2 plus 2 equals 4 as a vritti throughout your life. No. The vritti goes away. Now, the knowledge that 2 plus 2 equals 4 is obvious to you. And when something becomes so obvious to you, you can see that the knowledge takes place, but the vritti doesn't keep repeating 2 plus 2 equals 4, 2 plus 2 equals 4. It's taken place, it's finished. Same way, when self knowledge takes place, Atma Vidya, Brahma Vidya takes place, it doesn't have to keep repeating, I am Brahman, I am Brahman, I am Brahman. It's taken place, and now it is evident to you that I am Brahman. What is there to think about? It is a fact. And when it becomes a fact, when you see it as a fact, that is the seeing, that is the jnana. And nobody can shake you out of it. If somebody can shake you out of it, it means it's not taken place. It means that you are just you just heard it, or you believe in it, but it's not taken place.
Mm.
So that is talking about. Pramana is effortless. If it requires effort, then we are introducing the karta into the picture. Any questions here? Super important. Like this is what we should discuss like tonight, or for you guys morning. Would you like to, I guess, present your understanding and we can just refine it if there's a scope for that? No? All good? Okay. हाँ जी,
Uh,
अपर्णा जी.
yeah. So this vritti is the analysis that we are doing, is it?
No, because
No?
analysis is an effort. Analysis implies mental
Right,
action. No, it's
right,
manasic karma.
right,
Suppose somebody gives you a math problem to solve, you're analyzing it, and that takes action. In fact, you get
right.
tired up. In
Mm.
listening, there's no tiredness. When you're analyzing, you get tired, your mind gets stressed. Arey, I'm so tired. Oh my goodness, I thought so much. You're at work and you're in front of a computer. You might have seen this. It happens to me also sometimes. You may not be doing physical labor, lifting
Yes, yes,
stones, breaking bricks and all, but you work in front of the computer whole day, and by the end you're so exhausted, even if you're physically
exactly.
like not doing anything, because your mind has processed so much information and thinking, strategy, that after a point you just want to take a break because that physical exhaustion also happens because of the mental exhaustion. So when we analyze, it is karta. The karta is involved. It is some form of action.
Right.
Karya has taken place. So
Mm.
continue.
So my question is vritti said to be that which that part of the mind which analyzes? That is what I'm asking. Is
No,
that
no,
not?
no.
No.
And
Okay, what I
the
am
vritti is
trying to still
born
understand.
also from analysis. The vritti is born also from direct sensory perception. Analysis also gives birth to vrittis. Sensory perception also gives birth to vrittis. The direct perception, the most direct, is the sensory perception. The vrittis that are formed through analysis. Okay, I'll give you an example. You are a teacher, I think, right? You teach.
Mm. Yes,
Okay. And what subject do you teach?
maths and science.
You teach all subjects, right? So if somebody tells you what is tan q in a triangle, okay.
Mm.
Now you heard the word tan q, but what is tan? You'll say it is sine over cos.
Yeah.
But you have to think about that. So the
Mm.
first vritti that fell was tan q or tan x or tan y or whatever.
Mm.
Tan something, tan theta. Now tan theta is the vritti that you heard. Hearing takes place, tan theta. Then your next vritti was sine theta over cos theta. Then you thought about that. You thought about that was a secondary vritti that was formed. The
Right,
secondary vritti decomposed the first vritti into its
right,
constituent parts. You
right.
decompose tan into sine and cos, two things.
Got it.
Then if you want to go further, then you'll be like, what is sine? I don't remember my trigonometry, but I think it's this side over the hypotenuse, right? The
Yeah.
opposite over the
Yeah.
hypotenuse.
Opposite over.
Then you'll be like, okay, what is the cos? It is like the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. Then you'll be like, okay, what is hypotenuse? then you'll go to that. Okay. Then you'll go to another vritti. What is the hypotenuse of a triangle? What is a triangle? Okay, it's this. What is the side of a triangle? Okay, this. What is the side made of? Is made of points. What is the point? It is single dimension thing, something, whatever. You see, every vritti can give rise to another vritti, another vritti, another vritti. You keep decomposing it further. This is analysis.
Yeah.
Every vritti that is born of an analysis is a secondary, tertiary, quaternary, centenary, whatever, etc., vritti. And
Right.
all of those vrittis are put together is the analysis of the original
Correct.
vritti that you had, which is tan q, tan theta.
Correct. Correct.
But when you do this whole analysis, that is not where the knowledge takes place. The knowledge
Right.
takes place when the simple hearing takes place, that Tattvamasi
Oh,
Mahavakya. But that
oh,
implies that you have done the analysis in the past. You have thought about
right.
it, you did your mananam, you've done your shravanam, you've done your nididhasana, you've done all of these things, you've stayed with it, you've put in some effort in the past, and because you put in the effort in the past, that clarity is there so that when you are exposed to that same repeat, this time it is effortless. But the effort
Oh,
has to be put in the past, and that is not jnana, that is karma.
right.
You are studying something and we are trying to understand, action is involved.
Right.
But when
Got
that
it.
understanding is clear, that
Yeah.
your name is Aparna ji is clear to you. You don't have to
Mm,
do any mananam or whatever, etc. on that.
correct. Correct. Correct.
So when the Guru says that Atma Tvamasi, that Atma you are, now you know you've done the analysis of Tat. What is that called? Tat Vichara. Vichara means analysis.
Mm,
Tvampada
mm,
Vichara. You heard these things, no? Tvampada
yes.
Vichara, Tatpada
Yes.
Vichara.
Yes.
Asi. Then you understand what is it? Asi.
Yeah.
Asi is doing the comparison, not the comparison, but the equivalence. And
Equal.
then when this whole Mahavakya is so clear to you because you've analyzed it deeply, you've done the Vichara, during the time of Shravanam, Vichara will not lead to Atmajnana. Vichara will prepare the mind
Mm.
so that when you are repeating the Shravanam, Atmajnana takes place.
Oh, you have to repeat the Shravanam for it to take place.
For some
Not at the
people,
end of analysis. The that doesn't happen at the end of analysis, is what you're saying.
for
After all
some
your
people,
analysis is done, uh,
yes.
you're
For some,
clear now. That is not jnana. Okay.
that is not Jnana. And you have to repeat Shravanam for some people. If you are an Uttam Adhikari, if you are Adi Shankaracharya, the first shot, ho gaya, come. Because your mind is already prepared. Antakaran, you're avatara. Avatara,
Right.
there's no, you don't need Antakaran Shuddhi.
That is, the Shravana has to happen after your mind is prepared. Chitta Shuddhi. Either your Antakarana is prepared for that Jnanam to happen. After that, Shravanam has to happen for Jnanam to happen, is what you're saying.
Yes,
Right?
yes. And it can happen before also. It can happen after also. But what I mean to say is, suppose you pick some, you go to your school. You pick some 15-year-old. Hey, come here, come here. He's like, what? Tattvamasi. Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Did you understand that? No, I did not. Okay, go. You're dismissed. See that person has no preparation, and so now you teach Vedanta to this person. And then after some time, you'll be like, okay, Tattvamasi, have you thought about it? Think, this is okay. I did my homework. I did analyze this. I did vichara, blah, 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 blah. Tattvamasi. Maybe knowledge will take place, right? If that person is prepared. But what Shravanam implies, see, let's put it this way. Shravanam is the teaching. The teaching is in the form of words. The words give rise to a vritti. When the mind is prepared, the vritti takes place immediately, as it should take place. Even if the mind is not prepared, a vritti will take place, but it may be a wrong vritti. So
Okay.
that means that suppose I'm exposed to Mahavakya right now, and I'm not very clear, and I don't have, and even if I have a lot of clarity, but maybe I'm disturbed today. Maybe I had a fight with my wife. Maybe my boss shouted at me. Maybe I stubbed my toe. Maybe something bad happened. And I'm just not in the frame of mind where you teach something to me and I'm ready to absorb it right now. Because my mind is scattered, it's anxious, it is stressed. That's when you say that there are so many competing vrittis in my mind simultaneously right now that what you say has no space to take place. It is not going to take place at all. It will be ignored. It will just be words that are falling and bouncing off. But
Right.
for a person whose mind is tranquil, it is at ease, it is calm, it is in a listening phase. It is able to listen, it is able to stay. For such a mind, when the vritti tattvamasi with the background of of what that is, what Tvam is, when that takes place, knowledge takes place simultaneously.
Mm.
But when I
Right.
say it doesn't, this Shravanam doesn't only have to be in the form of listening to the Guru's words. After the analysis and all, it could also be that you're reading a book of a guru who has presented it clearly. Like, so many books are published of Pujya Samji.
Right.
The home study Gita we are studying right now.
Right. Right.
And then when you read that again, and you just have to contemplate and you just have to see the meaning. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to
Right.
analyze it. You just have to see the meaning. Allow the
Mm.
meaning to shine. That shine is the jnana. When that meaning
Okay.
shines in your heart, knowledge has taken place. But it is not
Mm.
going to ring a bell and announce, ki, oh, I'm here, knowledge have taken place, congratulations, you're now a jnani, jackpot. That's not going to happen. When knowledge takes place, that's it. That's it. It just takes place and there's no announcement whatsoever. In fact, if
Mm.
a person doesn't have much, um, it is very likely the person may even still feel that nothing has taken place. It's not going to take place in one jhatka. That's what I mean to say. It is what
Ah.
Pujya Samji says is knowledge takes place gradually, like the rising of the sun over the horizon. See, and
Right.
this is where some people get thrown off. There is one set of people who say knowledge takes place like this. There's Dhyana is an event, some people say. Pujya Samji says Dhyana is a gradual process. But what he
Right.
means by that is this.
This makes it more like it is possible in our lifetime. When you say it is gradual, you make an effort, you keep working on it, you keep at the Shravana Mananam, and you keep making that effort, and then slowly you start to understand a little more and a little more. Then that makes a little more sense than thinking, okay, I don't know, I understand something, I don't know if this when somewhere along the time that event will happen or not in my lifetime, that waiting for it doesn't have to happen. It can be gradual. Is that what you're saying?
S- Sort of, but let's stay with this for a bit because this part is again very important. See, avidya going away is instantaneous. When avidya goes away, it happens. It's not like little bit of avidya gone, little bit more gone, little bit more gone, little bit more jnana has come, little bit more jnana has come. Because then what happened is what we are saying is jnana is discrete. Knowledge of the whole, right? You are the whole. Barabar. This is what Vedanta says. You are the whole. Knowledge of the whole cannot take place in parts, segmentally or discretely. Okay. So that part I want to clarify. So when knowledge takes place. But what I mean to say is, when knowledge has taken place also, the jnana nishtha is what takes time to grow gradually. Does that make sense? So that means that even if avidya has been destroyed, even if you are free, you may not fully see the fruits of that freedom. The
Right.
fruits come gradually
Okay.
till the point where you're able to stay with the fact that yes, I'm totally free. And that
Right.
abidance keeps growing. That abidance is what grows. Dhyana, that is what you call jnana nishtha. But
Okay.
jnana is once it has taken place, it is it is instant in that sense. Does that make sense more? But for that jnana to take, that's why Puja Swamiji had explained somewhere that one may not be even aware of that fact because you may still have uh, certain anxieties, you may still have certain stressors, you may still have certain emotional outbursts, whatever it may be, post jnana also. But as
Oh.
jnana nishtha, but as jnana nishtha rises, those things will come down. So as jnana takes
Oh.
place, jnana nishtha will rise very incrementally quickly. But it you'll not go back now. Now you'll keep going forward because see, and the other thing is that even if you've done Shravanam, you know that the clarity is growing and you know the abundance is growing because for all of us, right? You know this for a fact that as you stay with the teaching, the abundance does grow gradually over time. Like in my case also there are moments like especially now like two kids with work. I'm kind of like doing something on the side, a lot of things that keep me busy. And there are days when honestly I don't and this is really my fault I suppose, but I don't get time for Shravanam every day. And I'm trying to get back into that groove, right? Where you create a certain discipline for yourself and you're able to do it. But I do know that when I pick up the teachings, when I look at it, it feels like home. And it feels more and more and more familiar, and it feels more and more obvious as well. And so
Right.
I know that this abundance is growing in the teaching, and it grows and it grows and it grows. And even if you stray away seemingly because of our own shortcomings, it's not an excuse, or it's not a sort of suggestion that this is a good thing to do. But sometimes when I stray away, when I come back, it brings me back with even greater force. And so
Okay.
that's when you know that, okay, there is something of deep value that has been sought over here. It's not just an addiction, but it's something so deep that you know that there's nothing more profound to be found here, except for the fact that this is you, and that is as profound as it can get. Because everywhere else you're escaping into the world, but here it is just you. And you're looking into the mirror of the self when you are exposed to Shravanam. And
Yeah.
so that Nishtha just continues to grow with greater and greater exposure to the teachings. And that's why one thing is that Pujya Swamiji, when he gave his talks on Shravanam, Mananam, Nidhasanam, I when I first heard them, I there were 25 talks, and out of that, the first 23 talks are on Shravanam. Only the last two talks are on Mananam and Nidhasanam. Because according to the way Pujya Swamiji explains it, Mananam is not really analyzing the teaching, but it is rather to make the teachings defensible against attacks from outsiders, right? It's not the Q&A part. Like for example, even the Q&A that you might cover with a guru, that is Shravanam, that's not Mananam. The
Okay.
Q&A ensures the clarity into the teachings. Mananam is more like, if I have to defend these teachings against an atheist, how do
Yes.
I counter their arguments, etc.? And
Clarity
Nidhya,
in my mind.
what's that?
Yes. So getting more and more clarity in my mind.
Yes, but not with regards to the
Okay.
teachings, but with regards to the the way I can uphold the veracity of the teachings. That means that for a person to attain dhyana, mananam is not necessary. Mananam is an extra step if you're interested. Um, for example, Brahma Sutra Bhashya. Brahma Sutras are mananam grantha. They are nyaya grantha. That makes you capable of, first of all, teaching, because a teacher needs to defend the teaching also. You can't just say that, oh, I'm a great teacher of Vedanta, but if somebody says Vedanta is wrong, I don't know how to defend the teachings. You can't do that. And Nididhasanan is essentially that framework where, as you said, where you stay with the teachings and you continue to try to see it, where your vrittis are not running astray, but the vrittis are trying to stay with the Mahavakya. And there is effort involved in Nididhasana. There's effort involved initially. But as that effort is involved, what it does is it creates a momentum. Like when you accelerate a car, it creates a momentum to the point where it can run on its own. So when Nidhyasana, there's a certain amount of momentum that's involved over there. After a point, that reflection becomes easier and easier and easier each time around. And that means that when you look at the teaching now, whether you listen to it or whether you look at it in the form of printed words, that is Shravanam. And now when you look at it, the meaning becomes more evident to you. And that is when you say knowledge has taken place. So ultimately, even when you talk about Nidhyasanan, all you're doing is you are repeating the teaching itself, right?
Right.
I'm not saying repeat the words, the teaching is the meaning, the message.
Yes, sir.
When that message is shining, that Nidhyasan itself is again just essentially nothing but repackaged Shravanam.
Mm.
But this time it may not be in the words of the Guru as you hear it, but maybe in the words of the Guru as you recall them. But it's still in the form of the words, the Vritti. And that if there is no effort involved over there, and you just see it, you just stay with it, that is knowledge.
Mm.
That is how knowledge takes place. But if you have to analyze, okay, but so this spot clay, the ocean wave, etc., that is analysis, and that's okay. But that part involves you as the karta,
Right.
and in that the karta vritti is operational. So the jnana vritti doesn't have space. So again, when the
Okay.
karta vritti subsides, and when you just see the teaching, then the jnana vritti is operational. That is what you mean by operating the pramana, where there is no karta involved. And that's why usually, like, there are many people, and you can start seeing this as you start communicating with people in Vedanta terms. But some people already have at the tip of their mind a question to ask before you completed saying things. And what that implies is that the analysis, the karta, is so operational that the jnana vritti cannot take place because what is heard is already outcompeted by what I am about to say. So that is why in our teachings, in our Vedanta Shravanam classes, the questions are left to the very end, because the goal is for the student to just listen and allow the words to fall and operate, as it were. The guru is the surgeon operating these words, operating upon the shishya with the use of these words. The words are the instrument, and what they reveal is the meaning. Very beautiful, all of this is. If this part is understood, then you can say Vedanta is understood. This part, how knowledge takes place. So, because what this will do is this will completely shape the way you study the Shastras in the future. Your whole perspective of how you look at Shastras will update after this. Yes, any other questions? Or this is more clear now? All good? Okay. So let's reconvene next time. Here's a thought I have for you all. If interested, optional, if you want to write in your own words what we just spoke about, this important part, I can review it and we can discuss next time. And you can send it in to me like by just in a notepad or send it to me on WhatsApp or whatever. And if that's of interest, we can take a private session. We can just review it separately. Is that of interest? Okay. So this thing
Yes.
about like knowledge taking place, I'm going to send you the screenshot of what we've just looked at. This
Right.
Buddhi as Guru. Read it and present it in your own understanding, and let's see how clear it is. Okay. So next time we'll do that. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Wishing everyone very auspicious Holi. Namaste.
Never.
Hari Om.